Yes, so good evening, everyone, and I welcome you all specially to the Africa Elta July webinar. It is my awesome delight to host this webinar today, along with my colleagues from the PD office, Dancy Kimathi and Letitia Akabutu. This webinar, it's going to be one webinar that will leave every one of us spellbound, I can assure you, because we have a very distinguished presenter for today, our immediate Africa Elder past president. And I wouldn't say more than that because we have with us the executive secretary for Africa Elder, Jane Maru, who is here to introduce our presenter. She's going to be reading the bio to every one of us now. Hello, Jane. Over to you to introduce our distinguished presenter. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Blessing. Greetings, everyone, from wherever you are. I'm happy to be here also and ready to engage in this session. So, our session will be led by Dr. Rethabile. Dr. Rethabile Mawela holds a PhD in education, English language teaching from Rhodes University in South Africa. She taught English in high school for 18 years. She has been a lecturer and a teacher developer for 12 years. Her focus is on in-service English learning teachers. Her research interests are in the teaching of reading through storytelling and multilingualism. In addition, Rethabile is an active member of the Eastern Cape English Educators Association, ECEEA. It's a provincial association under the National Association of English Teachers in South Africa, that is NAESTA. She's currently serves as the past president of Africa English Language Teachers Association, Africa ELTA. And let us all welcome our today's speaker. Please open your hands, your virtual hands, to welcome Dr. Rethabile. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Dr. Rethabile. Your mic is muted. Over to you now.
You have truly blessed the way. What you are doing has never been done.
Greetings, Africa Elta. There is another sound that seems to be competing with me. Thank you. And thank you to the organizers for inviting me to come and join this important occasion today. I've always attended webinars, but not as a presenter, but as someone listening and benefiting from what everyone else has to say. We are going to just share a few ideas as we talk today. Teaching that transforms, and that's our goal as educators, is for us to provide the kind of learning that transforms our classrooms, that transforms our societies, that transforms our continent, that transforms our world at large. And we are just going to take a bit of that and look at practical strategies for engaging every learner. That for today, there are a lot of things we can do, but for today, we are just going to look at one aspect. As we start, I have a question for you. How many indigenous languages are spoken in your country? I think we can actually unmute and state, just tell us how many indigenous languages are spoken in your country. If not, you can write on the chat if you are not able to unmute and say. How many indigenous languages are spoken in your country? 500. Can you please indicate the name of the country and then tell us the number? I see here one says 500 and I do not know which country that is. I see 43. Let's say yes, 40 in Kenya. Thank you. Let's do that. I see it's coming. So we all come from languages that speak a lot, countries rather, that speak a lot of languages. I'm suspecting that this 500 is from Nigeria. Okay. 40 Kenya. Someone else says 43 Kenya. So I guess those will have to share their notes and see who's right, who's wrong. And then we have over 300 from Nigeria. We have over 520 languages in Nigeria. So yeah, it looks like Nigeria is winning the cup on the number of languages. Some are saying over 520, others are saying over 500. That sounds like the same thing. And then there's just one who is very polite, says 300. And then Tanzania, we have 132 languages and more. Yeah, quite a lot. All right, at least 520 languages in Nigeria seems to be winning. In South Africa, I am not sure how many languages we have, but I know that the official ones are 12. But I know that there are more languages than those, but the dominant and official ones are 12. All right, thank you very much. I have one more question for you. How many home languages do the learners in your English classrooms speak? I'm assuming that all of us here teach English. We may teach it as a second language. We may teach it as a foreign language. We may teach it as an extra, but I want you to just think about your English class and tell us how many home languages the learners in your classroom come from, because we generally do not teach indigenous speakers of English. Let me check the chat again. 3. Another one says 15 to 20 languages because it is a federal school. All right. Another one says 3. Another one says 1 language. Okay, you are lucky. Another one says around 6 languages. That's Angola. Another one says 3. Another one says 5 languages. Another one says 4. Good. Yes. Thank you very much. Another one says about 4 languages. That is true. Yes, I agree with you. Thank you very much for your responses. Generally, we all agree that there are not many of us who teach learners who come from home languages that are the same. At least once in a while, we do find those who come from a background where they speak the same language. But most of the time, you'd find that you have a group of those who come from this background and this background. Sometimes you have 2 dominant languages, but you know that they come from home languages that are way more than whatever it is that you may have. Okay, very good. So we agree that this continent is a multilingual continent. We have many languages spoken on the continent. Now, how many languages do we have on the continent? You can unmute and say.
1,000?
1,000, very good. Another one?
More than 1,000.
More than 1,000, that's a safe answer. Another one?
More than 1,800 maybe.
More than 1,800. That's closer. Yes.
Yeah.
That's closer. Yes. I also did not know until I asked AI, you know. It says Africa
In
is
Congo, for example, in
Eh,
Congo, we have more than 420 languages. Dear
woo.
Congo.
And then you have Nigeria with more than 520. So already those two countries are close to 1,000, just the two of them.
And
yet
we have also
Yes, that's
80
true.
plus languages in Ethiopia.
more than
Diverse.
80.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
AI says, oh, there's someone else wanted to say something? Yes.
No, I just wanted to add that in Sudan we have about the same number, like 80 something.
About 80 something. So that
Lovely.
clearly shows that 1,000 is not the number. It has to be higher than that. Now, AI says Africa is home to an incredible linguistic diversity with more than 2,000 distinct living languages spoken across the continent. These languages are broadly categorized into 4 major families. But generally there are more. You notice that it's not 2,000. They're saying it's over 2,000. Then they have broken them into families: the Niger, Congo, Afro-Asiatic, Nilo-Saharan, and Khoisan, along with several others spoken on islands like Madagascar. So clearly this continent is rich with languages. So there it is. You've got the Afro, the blue, the section of the continent that has a light blue color. They speak the Afro-Asiatic languages. And then the section of the continent that is yellow, they speak the Nilo-Saharan languages. And then the section that is red, they speak the Niger-Congo A languages. And then the section that is orange, they speak the Niger-Congo B, which is the Bantu languages. And then the green section is the Khoisan languages. And then the pink section is the Austronesian languages. That's Madagascar and so on. So you can tell that you cannot use one paint for the continent. It's huge and with different languages. Now, remember, this grouping was just to try and understand how the languages are structured and so on and so forth. That's why they had to come with these major groupings. But the languages themselves, no one has been able so far to come up with an exact number. And maybe it's not important for us to come with an exact number, but it matters that we understand that we belong to a continent that is rich with languages. This is a multilingual continent. English is not an indigenous language of Africa. It came through colonization. In my country, they say it came by boat. It came through the boat, when they crossed the ocean coming into Africa. And however, it has over time become a global language. This is why we communicate in English, even though we are not English speakers ourselves here. If I were to speak my language, very few people would understand me. If you are to speak your language on this platform, very few people will understand you. So this is why we are using English on this platform, and because we consider it to be a global language. This is why we also teach English in our spaces. Some of us teach it in primary school. Some of us teach it in high school. Some of us teach it beyond that in tertiary colleges and universities. So it is a global language, but we still have our languages. There are many languages, all right? What does this mean, therefore, for me as a teacher of English, for me as an English practitioner? What does this mean? It means I need to be mindful of the fact that the learners or the pupils in my class come from non-English speaking homes. In the past, they used to speak of L1 interference. You probably, those who are around my age, will remember that when we were growing up, we spoke English with an African accent. We still do. And you could tell, even now as we talk on this platform, I can tell that this accent is from Nigeria. You can tell that this accent is from South Africa. We can tell that this one is from Egypt, this one is from, because of our accents. And those accents are created by our home languages, our L1s. And when we were growing up, when I was growing up, they used to call it L1 interference. They considered our mother tongues or our home languages as interfering with the speaking of English. Now, later, that changed. We spoke of L1 influence. We no longer speak of our home languages as interfering, but we now speak of them as influencing the way we speak English. But that has also changed. Now, in this century, we speak of the Englishes of the world. We no longer speak of one English. We now speak of the Englishes. So the kind of English spoken in Nigeria is English for them. The kind of English spoken in South Africa is English for them. The kind of English spoken in Tanzania is English for them. The kind of English spoken in Ethiopia, in Egypt, in Sudan, wherever we are, is English. And that is why the scholars have changed the language to say, the terminology. We are now talking of the Englishes of the world. And we further are now talking about multilingual pedagogy. We are now in a multilingual space. Yes, it is true that English is still dominating, but we are now being mindful of the fact that we belong to a continent that has other languages that are not English. To decentralize English, scholars say the home languages that the learners bring into the class must be used as tools to assist them to learn English. Multilingual pedagogy, what does it mean? It refers to teaching approaches that recognize and actively use learners' multiple languages as resources for learning. Central to multilingual pedagogy is the concept of translanguaging, which enables learners to move flexibly between languages to construct meaning. This approach suggests that we build from what learners already know and support the gradual development of academic language. By allowing learners to engage with content in their home language before they express ideas in English, teachers can strengthen both conceptual understanding and language development. We are no longer chasing away our home languages from the classroom. We are inviting them into the classroom because we are using them in order to enhance the learning, to strengthen the learning of the target language, and the target language is English for us. So how do we do that? There's a step-by-step way of teaching through multilingual pedagogy. It's an approach that you can use in your class. And I'm going to only, there are a number of steps, but for our discussion today, I'm only going to use 3 steps. Step number 1, reframe your pedagogical mindset, your ideological preparation. Step number 2, map learners' linguistic repertoires. Step number 3, design lessons using translanguaging for learning. Let us look briefly at the steps that I have, that I am suggesting. Just give me one. Yeah, good. I was trying to, All right, step number 1, reframe your pedagogical mindset or your ideological preparation. What am I saying? I'm saying shift from monolingual thinking to multilingual epistemic orientation. The days of immersion have gone by. You remember when we were growing up, when we were in primary school and in high school, there was always this teacher, the English teacher, who never spoke any indigenous language. That teacher would only speak English, and whenever you went to him or her, you knew you needed to change and address the teacher in English. And there was always this desire, I wish I could speak English like teacher so-and-so. That was the concept of immersion. It came from the scholars of the day, the researchers of the day, the educated people of the day who said, in order for a child to learn a target language appropriately, that child must be immersed in that language. So when the child gets into my classroom, I make sure that the child is only exposed to English because I want that child to speak English properly. I want that child to be fluent, to write English properly, and so on and so forth. That was the, the theory of immersion that was dominating back in the day. We are now in an era, my colleagues, where we need to shift from that concept, that theory of immersion. We are now forced to shift into a multilingual epistemic orientation, where we are saying we need to allow these other languages to come into the learning space. So you need to reflect on your beliefs about language and learning. I know when I started teaching some years ago, I also copied from my teachers, even when I was training to be an English teacher, when we were encouraged. And so when I started teaching for many years, I was that teacher who would only speak English to an extent that those people I taught back in the day, they are now, many of them are now adults themselves, they're working. When they bump into me, wherever I am, they change and they address me in English. To an extent that some of them did not even know that I knew the indigenous languages. They thought, no, she doesn't speak this language at all because I had that. So now we are saying, that those days are gone. Number 2, accept that learners' full linguistic repertoires are resources. They are not a problem. They are a resource for you as the one who teaches English. That home language that the boy and the girl bring into the class is a resource. Understand that the goal is understanding and meaning making, not only mastery of the language of instruction. Explicitly reject deficit views of African languages or non-dominant languages. We used to punish learners for speaking other languages at school. We wanted them to only speak English. That made them think that their home languages are not good. They are not they are not for educated people. They are meant for uneducated people. And so they looked down. They grew up looking down on their languages because the important people in their lives who are teachers told them, never speak that language in this class. Only speak English in this class. So we now have to shift our mindset. Step number one is for me as an educator to sit down, for me as a teacher to sit down and change and reframe my pedagogical mindset. I know this is a difficult one, but we need to go through that process as English practitioners. The second step is map learners' linguistic repertoires. Know the linguistic resources available in your classroom. I was happy when we started. I asked, how many languages do your learners speak? And many of you were able to indicate that no, some are 15, some are 20, some 3, some 2, some 1. It's good to know the number of languages that you are dealing with when you get into your English class. So we are advised to conduct a simple language profile survey at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of the academic year. Ask the learners, what languages do you speak at home? What language do you prefer for reading? What language helps you understand difficult ideas? That is for you to record. It's not a test, it's not anything, but when you run this survey, it assists you to understand. Because in my country, for example, we've got children in one province called the Gauteng province. That is where Johannesburg is. I know many people who do not know South Africa, they know there's a town called Johannesburg. In Johannesburg, we've got people from different places with different backgrounds and so on. So what happens is at school, the schools are not able to provide the home languages that come from everyone. So what they do, you find a child speaks one language at home, but when they go to school, they learn in a different language. But it's a comfortable language because it's a language spoken around and so on and so forth. So you find that the language that they say they speak is actually not their home language. That's why the question is, what languages do you speak at home? You may find that they speak more than one language. In the community, they speak one language. In the home, they speak another. And at school, they speak a third language, you know, that kind of a thing. It's good to be mindful of that, to know that. And then create a classroom language map, a map or a chart for yourself. Identify dominant and minoritized languages. Say, okay, we have so many who speak this language, so many this one. What's dominating here? Usually in every area, you would have one that is dominating, or maybe two that are dominating. The outcome of this, it helps with teaching decisions. Your teaching decisions become informed by actual linguistic realities. You are not just assuming, you know, this is what will happen if I use this language and so on and so forth. All right, step number 3, design lessons using translanguaging for learning. If you look at the chalkboard that I have there, for instance, in the first block, I've written my lesson there. Today we will learn about the water cycle. And I've written the same thing in one of the South African languages, which is isiXhosa. I've written that just below that. Sizakufunda ngejikelele mzansi. And then you go to the second one, the one on the right-hand side that says bilingual glossary. I have the vocabulary for that particular lesson. It's written in English and it's also written in isiXhosa because that's the language that I'm using for that particular class. And so right from the onset, the children know that evaporation in their language is ukukhohlela, and condensation is ukufing, and rain is imvula, sun is ilanga. They get to, oh, this is what it is. And then when you have group work, they'll discuss in their home languages, but you will gradually be assisting them to get to the target language, which is English. Let's explain in English. We have spoken in our home language. Now let's wrap it up. Let's see what these concepts are in English and so on. All right. So let me try and give an example of the lesson that you can teach. All right. Once upon a time, I'm not sure if I still have time. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I still have a few minutes, I hope. Once upon a time, there was a king who ruled a kingdom in a far away country. And the king had a daughter, a beautiful daughter. In fact, the story says she was the most beautiful girl in the whole kingdom. And when the time came for her to get married, like all other young ladies, a lot of young men came as suitors to try and woo her and marry her. But this girl did not want to get married. She pushed all these suitors away from her. This worried the king. So one day, the king called his daughter and sat her down. Sipesihle, my daughter, you have come of age. It's time for you to get married. But I'm worried because you keep pushing away all the suitors. Everyone who's interested in you, you push them away. Now, you know, if you continue doing this, the danger is that one day you will remain a spinster forever. You will get to an age where all these suitors will go and marry other girls and you will remain with no one until you get old. Is that what you want? And so as they talked, this daughter, Sipesihle, ended up being convinced and said, okay, fine. I don't quite want to get married, but in order to satisfy you, Dad, this is what I will agree to doing. Anyone who wants to marry me must run a race with me. And if I outrun that guy, he's not going to marry me. But if he runs faster than me, then he can marry me. Now, it was a well-known thing that in that country, that young lady, Spesihle, was one of the fastest runners in the country. And so it was something that was well known, and they're like, whoo, what a challenge. But still, young men came. They started exercising. They started going to the gym. They started running the marathon because they were preparing themselves to go and run against the king's daughter. And so they went one after the other to go and run the race with her. And there they would run. And she would immediately just outrun them. She's gone. And they would be left behind. This went on and on until the king got really tired of this. And then the king said, okay, from now on, if my daughter runs faster than you, I'm going to kill you. Only those who know how to run must show up. And so the young men ran away. Only few who were very, very sure that they can run would come and race against Spesihle. And they took a chance. But unfortunately, a number of them lost their lives because they would come and run and she would still run faster than them. She was a fast runner indeed. And fewer and fewer guys took the risk to run against Spesihle. One day, the most ugly man came to run the race against Spesihle. When you looked at this guy, he had big feet that did not look like he can actually run. And so even as he was walking, the steps he was taking were not encouraging. Everyone would be like, will he manage? friends actually advised him, hey, my friend, if you still want to live, don't go there. But he insisted he wanted to go and run the race with the princess, basically. And so the king allowed him to run, and they started the race. And just as it was expected, as soon as they started running, basically the princess just went sprint, 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 and she was ahead of him. And everyone was like, yeah, man, this is what we knew this was going to happen. He came trudging behind. Glim, glim, glim. But then, while Spesitle was running fast and enjoying this gentleman pulled out a golden apple and threw it onto the ground close to where the princess was running. The princess saw this golden apple. She stopped. She went off the road. She picked up the golden apple. She thought to herself, I am going to win this race, and I will also have a golden apple. So she picked it up. But while she was picking up the golden apple, the ugly gentleman ran past her. He overtook her. He went and he moved. She took that golden apple, put it in her pocket, and then went back onto the track. When she got there, he was already a few steps ahead of her. She started running, and just as she is a fast runner, she just went sprint, 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 and overtook this gentleman. And so, while she was running, he threw out another golden apple. She saw the golden apple and she thought, this is my day. I'm going to have 2 golden apples and I'm still going to win this race. So she stopped. She got off the road. She picked up the second golden apple and she put it in the other pocket. While she was doing that, that ugly man ran past her. When she got back to the road, to the track, he had already passed. But just like before, she sprinted, and within 2 or 3 sprints, she had overtaken him. Then he threw out yet another golden apple. The princess thought, yeah, I'm going to have 3 golden apples. I will take them and then I will still win this race. So she stopped. She went and picked up the 3rd golden apple. Now, while she was bending to pick up this 3rd golden apple, the other 2 apples fell out of her pocket. So she had to run a few steps to that apple and run for that one and run for the 3rd one. And then she collected them and put them in her pocket safely. While she was busy running around picking up these apples that were scattered, that ugly man ran past her. And when she stood up, went back to the track, unfortunately, the man had reached the finishing line. Then after you have narrated this story, because you are a teacher, you get into the vocabulary. Some of the vocabulary that was used in the class was the kingdom. And you have that in Kiswahili. I thought, let me use Swahili. I know it's not a continental language, but I also know that it covers quite a number of us on the continent. I think we need to promote it and make it our continental language. All right, so there's kingdom in Swahili, ufalme, suta, mposa, reluctantly, kwa kusita-sita, executive, kutekeleza, sprint, kukimbia kwa kasi, brave, shujaa. All right, those are some of the vocabulary that you would want to teach your learners in the class from that story, all right? You pick up vocabulary from the story and you have it there in the two languages that you have chosen to use in the class, all right? And then you ask questions. Why did the princess get married to the ugliest man in the kingdom? And what lessons do we get from the story? These discussions are done in the different languages that are there. You can have a class discussion, or you can place them in groups and let them discuss these. Why did the princess get married to the ugliest man in the kingdom? They will be discussing that and saying it in their languages. And then the one that is mostly interesting would be, what lessons do we get from the story? They are going to come up with different lessons, but you want to later on take those answers, or those responses rather, that they will have given. You want them to be pushed into the English language. So you address all the concepts that you want to teach in 2 or 3 languages, whether you want to teach the noun or the verb or comprehension or whatever it is that you are teaching. You can address it in those 2 or 3 languages that you have chosen. Let the learners discuss in the languages they are comfortable with. Then they must be assisted to use English for formal presentation and writing. The teacher is the one who's responsible for building the academic vocabulary. As we wrap this up, when you wrap up your lesson, tell your partner, you are instructing the learners, tell your partner what happened in the story. You can start in isiXhosa, which is the language spoken in South Africa, or Kiswahili, then try it in English. So the child will narrate the steps that took place in the story in the local language, and then they will narrate it again in English so that they can practice the target language. This helps the learners to learn the target language. I see there's a hand up. You will be attended to after this presentation. Thank you. All right, thank you. Over to you, Madam Jane.
Wow, thank you very much for that wonderful and beautiful session. So we are taking questions. If you have any question, please you can put it in the chat. Meanwhile, I saw a question asking whether we'll share the presentation. Blessing will help us with that. We'll answer that for us. But sure, we always have the recordings shared in our YouTube channel. That is the Africa ELTA YouTube channel. So you can still follow up after the session. So if you have any question, please write down the questions in the chat box. Meanwhile, we have some reactions from the session. Able says, thank you so much, Dr. Rethabile, for the timely presentation. Someone says, fabulous session. Thank you very much, everyone. So we have a question here. Given Nigeria, from Able, given Nigeria's multilingual classroom realities, how can ELT practitioners reconcile our federation, government's English medium policies with learners' diverse linguistic repertoires and the need for multilingual pedagogical practices? That is a question.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Okay. So the question is, given Nigeria's multilingual classroom realities, how can the ELT practitioners reconcile our federation government's English medium policies with learners' diverse linguistic repertoires and the need for multilingual pedagogical practices?
I am not sure what the rule is in terms of the policies of the department or the Ministry of Education in Nigeria. But I will talk about what was happening here in my country. Here in South Africa, we were not for a long time allowed to use the home languages of the learners. We could teach in their home languages for the first 3 years, the foundation phase years of their schooling. But then from grade 4 onward, they were expected to be taught in English. And that's what has been happening for a long time. But since 2025, which is last year, the department or the Ministry of Education has said we now need to accommodate them and teach also in the language. Okay, I see it says the policy is only English medium policy in schools. Thank you very much. So that's the way it used to be here in South Africa as well. But what happened is studies were conducted and it was discovered that actually translanguaging and code switching were smuggled into the classes because teachers had to make meaning. You find that you are asking a simple question. Are there any cows at home? Or when do you take your cattle for immunization at home? The child doesn't know what that means. And yet they have cows at home. They know all those things that are done, but they do not know how to respond to the question. And so teachers found themselves code switching. Teachers found themselves translanguaging informally. And that is why even studies were conducted and then they found, here we are actually not doing well. Now, I do want us to agree that it is us as educators, it's us as teachers who need to gradually show the powers that be, because we are the ones in the ground. We are the foot soldiers. We're the ones who are seeing the problems in the classes. And so if we gradually show that, hey, when I teach using this, I see these results. When I speak English only, these are the results I get. But when I speak English and I allow the learners to use their languages to make sense of what I'm saying, and then I encourage them to speak English, they tend to learn faster and better. Studies have shown that. We now have that on the systems. And so I would encourage us who are still in countries where our ministries do not allow for the other languages to slowly and politely introduce these concepts. Hopefully someone will listen somewhere.
Wow, thank you very much. And I'm glad it's working in South Africa. It's something that we can all pick up, the different countries in Africa. So there's a contribution that says we can use these wonderful techniques to teach special needs learners and slow learners as well. Thank you, Kenna.
Yes, that's very true. Thank you very much. That's true. I see someone has asked what is the difference between code switching and translanguaging. Without getting into a university class, I'll simply give you a simple way of making the difference between the two. Code switching is when I use English and Kiswahili, or English and whatever language that I'm supposed to say. This is bread, sisonka. That's in isiXhosa. That's code switching. But translanguaging goes beyond that, or it goes deeper than that. It has to do with me teaching a concept and the child trying to understand that concept in their language, in their context, in their setting, and then making sense of it and saying, oh, so when you say this, it sounds like this. I'll give you an example of when we were teaching. I teach teacher educators and would be talking about what's this thing? Scaffolding learners, that they must scaffold the learning process and support the learners and so on. for them to make sense of that in their home languages, they came up with some of their home, with their expressions or idioms spoken in their languages, saying, okay, if I'm doing that, it means I'm saying that indlela ibuzwa kwabaphambili, which means I need to rely on the more knowledgeable others for me to grow and develop to where I'm supposed to be. So be there as the teacher to support the child. So it's a concept that you have taught in English, but it is a concept that the child can use in their language, not directly, but something similar, something that assists them to understand the concept. That is translanguaging in simple terms.
All right, thank you. Mara asks, what happens when you have learners speaking different languages in a class? Do you translate into all those languages, or what do you do as a teacher?
That's a very good question. You could respond it's up to you. Many times the teacher does not know all the languages. So you would want to say, okay, since you can use both English and that language. Or you can just say, okay, since there are many languages, like in countries like Nigeria, where there are many languages, then you would say, okay, I will speak English, but I will understand what they are saying, and I will say, okay, yes, the water comes from the tap. Yes, you are right. It is recycled this way and that way. So that one is more it's a fluid kind of situation. But in my context, because I would be teaching maybe a class that has only 2 dominant languages, then I could respond in that language and still go back to English. Realize that you as the teacher, you still are the English teacher. And so you would want to use more English than the other languages, even though you are taking cognizance of the other languages.
Okay. Thank you. Anne agrees that multilingual pedagogy is crucial in this era. What is the policy? What the policy is saying in Tanzania is that English should be the only language used as a medium of instruction. How can teachers go about this?
That's the same situation in Nigeria. I think that question is the same as the first question we answered, where we said that it's really now our duty as teachers to try and bring evidence to the Ministry of Education that when I smuggle in code switching and allow children to express themselves in their languages, they learn better than when I insist that they speak English only. It's us now who need to come up with statistics. It's us now who need to influence in the right way. It may not happen immediately, but that's part of our duty as educators.
Letitia adds, in Ghana, learners are taught in their native languages from primary 1 to 3. From primary 4, English is gradually introduced as a medium of instruction. Yeah, and I think Ghana is the country that also introduced having a native language as a national language or official language, if I am not wrong.
Yes,
maybe someone can correct me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yes, thank you for that comment, Letitia. Yes, the sentiment is the same as in South Africa, where they are now encouraging that the child must be taught in their home language for the first 3 years, and then in the 4th year, let's introduce English gradually, so that they are not totally, it's not a totally foreign thing, but they call it additive multilingual pedagogy. Let them learn it gradually until they get to a point where we can say they are now ready to learn. It's because research has shown that when we push the child into learning English before they have mastered their home language in terms of reading and writing, it slows down their growth, their academic growth, both in the learning of English as a target language and their home language as a subject. When they get to year 4 and we plunge them into English, they have not yet developed enough of their home language in terms of academic language to a point where they can stick to it. So you find a child later in the upper classes, the child cannot express, I mean, they may be able to express themselves, yes, but they cannot write academically in their language. They cannot write academically in English. They are just messing up both ways.
Wow. Thank you. So we only take a few questions because we have 5 minutes to go. So 2 minutes of answering the questions and then we'll be done. Then we can follow up through YouTube. So we have Abdesalam says, thank you for your presentation. Is the use of translation from target language into the native language as a tool to reinforce the learning of reinforce the learning the language, or is it for the sake of translation itself?
That is up to you as the educator. You can use it for just translating, but I would like to imagine that you are not using it just for translating as a teacher. You'd want to use it for the purpose of them learning the language, because most of the time they already have the vocabulary in their home language, but you are here teaching a story in the language that is not theirs. And so you want them to know that, oh, when they say this, they mean this. When they say this, they mean this. So it's for the purposes of teaching. But there are other spaces outside of your classroom where translation is for the purpose of translating, and that's it.
So in Angola, English is taught as a foreign language and teachers only have 2 sessions, that is 90 minutes per week. How can I handle time constraints while promoting a multicultural approach? Thanks for this very pertinent topic for ELT. We have that from Graciano. Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because when you have little time, you want to immerse them, as you are tempted to immerse them in the language, in the target language, because you feel you don't have a lot of time to do that. But maybe we could just have the vocabulary there, right there, and speak more of the target language in that short time. Do it slowly. Don't take yourself one step at a time and say, okay, I do want them to speak this target language, but I don't want to ignore their home language. Let me just do a little bit and give it a test yourself. Be the researcher in your own class and see what works best. You'll find that a few of them are already good at speaking English. They can even translate to their classmates and so on and so forth, but you want them to know that their home languages are also important. They're not they're not to be thrown out, to be flushed out, and so on. So you could decide whether you want a 20% versus 80%, and then gradually a 30% versus 70% of the language, and so on and so forth. Really, that's they call it additive. So you don't want to just everything all at once. This is not only for those who teach English as foreign language, it's for all of us indeed, because you don't want to just plunge them totally out for that.
So we'll take one last questions because of time. Rosa says, I really liked how you told us the story, Race to Marry the Princess. Thank you, Dr. Rethabile. I would also like to know at which class level or proficiency level this approach might be most effective. Additionally, can translanguaging, sorry, I missed something there. Okay.
I would say,
yes, please.
that I would say this works best in primary schools, year 4, year 5, year 6. I've tried this in those 3 classes. I've tried them in year 4, year 5, and year 6. But I would like to imagine that one can try it in another, but it's primary, what I consider to be primary school, what we call intermediate phase and senior phase in my country. So maybe year 4, year 5, year 6, that's where you can try this particular lesson.
Thank you. I see so many countries are similar. I see Uganda is the same situation in Ghana. So we have a lot that we can exchange. I think personally for me, what I've gotten from this session is that as some policies in the different countries cannot work for us, but as a teacher, you have a chance to make that difference and try these practices. And maybe in future, we can say this works for sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Rethabile, for that engaging session. It was such a powerful session. So I want to give it over to Blessing. And as I give it over to Blessing, please let us appreciate Dr. Rethabile with a clap, a virtual clap. Flowers, please give her some flowers. And thank you.
Yeah, lots of love. Thank you, Dr. Rethabile. Thank you.
so much.
Yeah, thank you, Jane.
It's really an honor to see you all again.
Thank you so much.
To meet
Of
you
course.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
so
been
much.
a really, really wonderful session, and we really appreciate all your contributions. It was really worth the while in the past 1 hour having this very insightful topic, and hearing from diverse cultures and diverse countries. And well, nobody asked the question that has been in my mind, but I wouldn't say it's a question. I would only say I found myself in a place teaching about over 10 years ago. And in that place, I couldn't speak their language. It was Igbo language in Nigeria. And I was from Lagos State. I was speaking English. But what did I do? I had to get students who understood Igbo language. So when I speak in English, those that were able to speak Igbo, they would translate to their friends, in Igbo. And that was how I was able to manage, because I had over half of the class unable to understand or speak English. So I had students who were helping me to translate to their colleagues. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. We've gained a lot hearing from you all today. Thank you, Dr. Rethabile. Thank you, Jane, for your excellent moderation. Thank you. Thank you. I will meet again next month. We'll see you in August for the African Culture
Please
Webinar.
thank you for sending this session today. It's my first time to receive it from Ethiopia, and I would love to receive more of this kind of webinars. But thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're all welcome. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.